Pay close attention to what just happened, because this didn't come from a leaked locker room source. It didn't come from a blogger with an agenda. It didn't come from a fan base already riding hard for their guy. It came from the panel. The same panel that spent months hyping Deshaun Watson's return like it was some kind of resurrection story. The same analysts who flat out refused to put Shedeur Sanders in the top 20 quarterbacks coming out of the draft. The same voices that kept finding new reasons to pump the brakes on the Shedeur story every single time his name came up in a serious conversation. And now those same people are sitting in front of cameras saying something completely different. Now they're confirming what a lot of people in Cleveland quietly already believed. Shedeur Sanders is where greatness lives. The roster was built for him to win, and Watson, $185 million paid, 3 good games to show for it, is walking into an off-season camp with no pads, trying to steal a starting job from a guy who made that offense believe in itself when there was absolutely nothing around him to believe in. When the people who fought hardest against your rise finally start confirming what you always knew, that isn't just a moment, that is a turning point. And this one deserves to be broken down word by word, because every piece of it changes the entire conversation around Cleveland football. There is a question that has been hanging over this competition since the offseason started. One question that kept getting deflected, dodged, and delayed every time it came up on air. Can Shedeur Sanders realistically be a top 20 quarterback in the NFL by 2026? For months, one of the panel's own, Titus, answered that question with a hard no, or worse, with a non-answer. Every time the topic came up, the response was some version of, "I'll answer that after the draft." A stall, a hedge, a way of keeping the door closed without slamming it shut on camera. Well, the draft is over, the picks are in, and Titus finally has nowhere left to hide. With the additions to the offensive line, with the additions to the receiving room, with KC Concepcion bringing a vertical element nobody in that offense had last season, with Spencer Fano expanding what that offense can do schematically, with a coaching staff that is fully bought in and is building the system around what Shedeur does well, yes, absolutely, Shedeur Sanders can be a top 20 quarterback in 2026. Let that land for a second. The analyst who wouldn't commit before the draft committed after it, and his reasoning wasn't about Shedeur suddenly becoming a different player. It was about the environment finally being built to let him show what he already is. That distinction matters more than people are giving it credit. The Browns didn't make soft investments this offseason. They didn't patch a few holes and hope for the best. They went in and spent roughly $100 million specifically on protecting a young quarterback who spent last season operating behind one of the worst offensive lines in the entire NFL. Think about what that number means in real terms. Titus Howard, Zion Johnson, 2 significant additions to a unit that was getting Shedeur killed last year. Not figuratively, literally. He was taking hits he shouldn't have been taking. He was making decisions under pressure that no quarterback, regardless of talent level, can consistently make clean when the pocket is collapsing before the play has a chance to develop. And then the Browns went and hired George Warhop as the offensive line coach. Warhop isn't just any hire. He has a documented track record of developing and maximizing linemen. He takes raw pieces and turns them into functional, cohesive units. He has done it before in this league at a high level. So when Titus made the argument, and it's an argument that's genuinely hard to push back on now, that Shedeur's struggles last season were more a personnel problem than a quarterback problem, this offseason spending is the receipts. You don't drop $100 million on an offensive line because you think your quarterback is the issue. You do it because you know your quarterback is the answer, and you finally want to give him the conditions to prove it. Here's where things get interesting, because Titus didn't just flip completely, he attached a condition to his endorsement. And that condition, when you actually break it down, says a lot more about where Shedeur's game is than it does about his ceiling. The note was simple. Shedeur has to take the layups. In quarterback terms, that means when the easy completion is there, the 5-yard out on 3rd and 4, the simple check down that moves the chains and keeps the drive alive, he has to take it. He can't always be looking for the spectacular play when the smart play is the boring one. He has to show Todd Monken and the coaching staff that he trusts the system, even in the moments when the system is asking him to be disciplined instead of explosive. Now, some people hear that and immediately treat it as a knock, but sit with it for a moment and it reads differently. The reason great quarterbacks skip the layup is usually because they believe they can do something better. That impulse, that belief, is actually a trait of elite competitors. The problem is only in the execution. Knowing when to let the spectacular go and be great in the ordinary moment is a developmental step. It is the developmental step. And the fact that it's the main note being raised means everything else about Shedeur's game is already at the level where the coaching staff is comfortable. The bigger point here is what changed in the surrounding cast. Last season, Shedeur was being asked to take layups to targets who weren't getting open. The easy throw didn't exist at a consistent rate because the receivers weren't consistently creating separation. This year, the context is fundamentally different. Denzel Boston is a real red zone presence. KC Concepcion can threaten defenses vertically. Jerry Jeudy enters a contract year with everything to prove. The layups are going to be there this time. Whether Shedeur takes them, that's what the tape will answer. Now, let's get into the Watson side of this, because the panel's handling of the Watson argument this week was genuinely eye-opening. And the way they framed it, the specific numbers they put on it, is probably the most damning thing anyone has said publicly about this situation all offseason. 3 good games, $185 million paid. That is the Cleveland Browns' return on the most expensive quarterback investment in NFL history at the time of the deal. Not 19 serviceable games, not a winning record, not a single moment where the franchise looked at Deshaun Watson under center and genuinely felt like it had found its guy. 3 good games for $185 million. And now Watson is walking into an offseason camp with no pads, going up against what some analysts consider a top 5 defense in live action settings, trying to prove enough to take a starting job from a player who, on a 5-win team with the worst weapons in football, brought confidence and swagger to that huddle in a way that made that entire offense believe they could win. That last part was Titus's, and it's worth dwelling on because it reframes the entire Watson argument. He said, and this is a paraphrase, that there were genuine moments last season when that Cleveland offense actually believed it could win games with Shedeur under center, that Shedeur brought something to that huddle that made guys believe, not eventually, in real time, in games that were already supposed to be losses. That is leadership. That is the intangible that no contract can manufacture and no sum of money can buy. And that is exactly what Watson is now being asked to go produce against a first-team defense in an environment with no live bullets and no real stakes. The bar isn't fair, but it wasn't Watson who said it. It was the 6 years of declining performance that came before this moment. The panel didn't sugarcoat this part. One voice said it bluntly without hedging. For 6 years, Watson has been bad. The track record says what it says, and while you can construct arguments about fit, that the Stefanski offense wasn't built for Watson's strengths, that maybe the Monken system unlocks something that wasn't missing so much as misplaced, those arguments are theoretical. And possibility is not probability. When one side of this competition has already shown that it can bring swagger to a huddle, make an offense believe, and put up an 80% completion rate in minicamp conditions, and the other side is coming off a 6-year track record of declining production, 2 Achilles ruptures, and a body that has not held up consistently under the demands of NFL football, the burden of proof in this competition is not evenly distributed.
The cameras will roll. That was how the panel put it, and it's exactly right. The camera doesn't account for contracts. It doesn't care about $185 million, or what ownership preferences are, or what a signing meant to a franchise at the time it happened. The camera captures what happens on the field, and the team gravitates toward the player that evidence keeps pointing to. That process has already started, It began in the voluntary workouts. It continued through minicamp. It's building momentum into OTAs with every rep Shedeur takes with the first-team offense. Watson can show up desperate. He can eat, sleep, and breathe football every single day between now and training camp. That kind of desperation can generate real effort. No one is dismissing that. But effort in an off-season setting with no pads does not erase 6 years of declining production, 2 major injury setbacks, and the historical investment that never delivered the football results it was supposed to justify. This is the part of the panel conversation that deserves the most attention because it addresses the question that no one in Cleveland really wanted to confront directly. What if Watson somehow wins the competition? The panel's response was blunt in a way that left very little room for interpretation. You would have to be desperate to play Deshaun Watson at this point. He has not been good for 6 years. And if Munkin names Watson the starter heading into the season, what that tells you, the only thing it tells you, is exactly where the coaching staff believes Shedeur's development currently stands. But then someone on the panel said something that reframes the entire Watson financial argument in a way that cuts through everything else, and it's worth stopping on. If Watson is named the starter, it won't be because the money influenced the decision. The $185 million is gone. It doesn't come back regardless of who takes the first snap in Week 1. Sunk cost is sunk cost, and any organization that makes football decisions based on recovering sunk costs rather than honest, present-tense evaluation of which quarterback gives them the best chance to win has already decided to lose before the season starts. The question the Browns front office has to answer is the only question that ever actually mattered. Which quarterback gives Cleveland the best chance to win now and in the future? Strip away the contract, strip away the reputation, strip away the organizational politics, strip away what the signing meant to a franchise that was desperate for a solution in 2022. Just ask the clean question and follow where the evidence goes. That evidence has been pointing in the same direction for months, and this week, the panel finally stopped pretending it wasn't. Let's talk about what this offseason construction actually says at the organizational level, because it's the part of this story that gets glossed over in the noise of the competition narrative. The Browns spent $100 million on the offensive line. They added Casey Concepcion for a vertical threat. They brought in Denzel Boston as a genuine red zone weapon. Spencer Fono adds more versatility to the receiver room. They surrendered 2 first-round picks, one for the tackle who will protect the quarterback on every dropback, one for the receiver who extends the field and gives defenses problems they cannot solve with simple coverage. None of that is a list compiled for a quarterback competition. That is a roster that was built for a quarterback the organization has already decided is their guy. When you spend $100 million on an offensive line, you don't do it for a backup. When you select a receiver at 24th overall specifically because his versatility at the route and his fit in the system aligns with what your offense is installing, you are not doing that for a player you are unsure about. Every single resource decision made this offseason flows downstream from one organizational conviction. Shedeur Sanders is the franchise quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, and this team is being constructed around what he is capable of becoming. Warhop was brought in to develop that line specifically for a young quarterback who needed a clean pocket. The system was designed around Shedeur's movement ability and decision-making in structure. The weapons were added to match what the offense will ask him to do. Every piece fits a specific quarterback, and that quarterback is not Deshaun Watson.
Now that the infrastructure is in place, now that the weapons are finally assembled, now that the protection is finally there, now that the coaching staff is fully invested and publicly calling Shedeur an elite playmaker, the evaluation that was never really fair last season can finally happen under conditions that actually tell you something real. Can Shedeur Sanders be great for 4 quarters? That's the question the panel raised, and it's the right one. With last year's personnel around him, that question couldn't be answered cleanly. You couldn't separate what was Shedeur and what was the chaos surrounding him. The two were too tangled together.
A bad line, a limited receiver room, a first-year head coach getting his footing, too many variables to isolate the quarterback. This year, those variables are different. The line is upgraded, the weapons are real, the coaching staff is fully operational in their system. The head coach has put his reputation on his quarterback by being publicly and repeatedly vocal about his belief in Shedeur. Helmet cameras are being used to maximize the development process. The environment is intentional. All of that means the tape this season is going to tell us something it couldn't tell us last season. It's going to give a real answer to the real question. And everything about the way this roster has been assembled, everything about the organizational resources that have been committed, and everything about the panel conversation this week suggests the front office already knows what that answer is going to look like. Here is where everything stands right now, assembled one final time. Deshaun Watson is eating, sleeping, and breathing football because he understands, on some level, that this is the last real shot. He knows that if he doesn't win this competition, if he doesn't start games and play well when those games matter, his NFL career is effectively over. That kind of pressure can generate real commitment. It can produce a player who gives everything available in an off-season setting. Nobody is questioning the effort Watson will bring into camp. But effort in a no-pads environment does not erase 6 years of declining production, 2 catastrophic injuries to the same body part, and a $185 million investment that produced 3 good games as its headline achievement. That track record exists. The camera captured all of it. Shedeur Sanders, meanwhile, has been in the building all winter. His minicamp completion percentage was at 80%. He gave an offense that had every reason to give up on itself, the belief that it could compete, not someday, not eventually, but in real games with the worst weapons in football around him. And now he has a $100 million offensive line behind him, new weapons working alongside him, a head coach who has staked his credibility on him publicly, and a panel of analysts, the very same analysts who wouldn't rank him in the top 20 coming out of the draft, telling the world that greatness is inside this quarterback. The roster was built for him to prove it. The tape is going to play. The team will follow the quarterback who is clearly superior, regardless of what any contract says or what any reputation demands. And the quarterback who already proved he could run that huddle with nothing around him is about to find out what he can do with everything around him. Cleveland has been waiting for this. And from every angle available, the organizational investment, the coaching commitment, the panel's own reversed position, everything says the wait is about to be worth it. The Watson argument? It isn't just fading, it's closing. The only thing left now is the tape, and the tape does not lie. Drop your thoughts below. Is the Watson chapter in Cleveland officially closed? And how far does this Browns offense go once Shedeur finally gets the environment that matches what's already inside him? Subscribe and hit the bell. Every development in this story breaks here first.